The Kali Yuga really is the age of psycho-spiritual retardation and ignorance. That doesn't just mean you're going to run into people that are full of ignorance and falsehood. It also means that you were born into an actual ethos and zeitgeist of misguided, incomplete, myopic, semi-blind, half-true concepts, which to someone of mind states more common of higher yugas like Treta and Satya seem bizarre and very misguided. These are the normalized beliefs and perspectives. For example, now in the Kali Yuga, someone is born and the first thing they immediately identify themselves with is the physical body. This is not just what a child believes. This is what the adults of this yuga popularly believe. That consciousness is a property of the brain. And that if the brain is damaged or changed, the consciousness is destroyed. The Treta or Satya-minded person, perplexed, asks, "You think that awareness and sentient experience didn't exist, but then some molecules rolled themselves together into a mound of meat called a brain, and then that magically created awareness and sentience out of nothing? You never once thought of the brain as being a receiver akin to the radios which you fashion all the time?" The Kali-minded person responds, "That can't be physically tested with a measuring instrument, and therefore that's just a myth." As an ascending soul who has reception to the knowledge of the higher yugas, I'm extremely puzzled when religious people all around the world preach the virtue of faith. I don't understand what you mean when you say you have faith in a God or Jesus. The reality is either revealed to you or it's not. And if it's not, you're just playing pretend. God has revealed itself to me. I don't have faith that my ideas are true. I have Gnosis. Gnosis basically means that the reality hasn't been proven in a way that can be demonstrated with physical evidence, but it means that basically the lights have come back on in parts of your mind. A notion that's foreign to your natural thinking, as if it was implanted there by divine inspiration, now appears as part of your mind, and it comes with all of the confidence typical of scientific laws, like laws of motion, universal gravitation, and thermodynamics. It's beyond common sense. It's just truth, regardless of if the individual with the gnosis wants to believe it as being true or doesn't want to. This is a characteristic difference between people of Satya or Treta and Kali states of mind. The Satya state of mind is so perfected and clear that it's immediately clearly apparent what's Gnosis, that is, truth that comes from divine inspiration, and an imaginary idea that the individual wants to believe. The spirit of truth is so abundant and clear that fact and fiction is cleaved in two like a hot knife through butter. At the Kali level of consciousness, this doesn't exist. The spirit of truth is so muddled in confusion that the only thing that qualifies as true is things that are demonstrated to exist as part of physical reality. And even then, the tendency is to reduce that to half-truth by even casting doubt on what's seen with your own eyes into a smog of relativism and murky categories. The use of words with meanings that have lost definition and clarity. Yes, the degradation of the spirit of truth also is reflected in the clarity and straight arrow truth of the meanings of words. The spirit of truth isn't just muddled, it's attacked, vandalized, and defamed. To speak the truth in today's age stirs in people great anger and defensiveness. I attribute this to the demons which have been cultivated inside of them, as Saturn is said to rule spirit possession and also deals with deception and blindness. It's blind fury. When the sun of truth shines upon the unlit cave, the unclean spirits within recoil in terror and rage, swatting at the light trying to make it go away. And these spirits only exist within because the sun of conscious truth hasn't been shined on this unconsciousness of the Saturnian shadow. But nevertheless, this growing malignant tumor of Saturnian deception attacks and lashes out against the solar spirit of truth, and to look at things as they are. In the darkness, anything can be anything, and people are blinded. Their minds are unlit, absent of the spirit of truth, and so there is a famine of Gnosis. When you don't have Gnosis, you can't really understand or relate to someone who does. Oh, you don't have a scientific study measuring physical things with testing instruments to verify this, so you're just choosing to believe things that you want to believe. I reply, no, it's just true. They say, I think you just came up with an idea, but you're so full of yourself and arrogant that you convince yourself that everything you think is true. I reply, no, it's just true. They say, great, so you've got it all figured out. Now why should I believe you? I say, you shouldn't. That would be faith, not Gnosis. That's the beauty of Gnosis. True Gnosis isn't the result of logic, reason, and evidence. It's literally downloads from divinity that come when they're supposed to. We begin in the realm of God's perfection and supreme truth and interconnected Gnosis. And then we willingly cast ourselves down past the bound of Saturn and Binah to experience deception, ignorance, and lack of faith and understanding in the divine. Then, when we're genuinely called back to the divine, our deeds and our atonement via the same Saturn return us to higher states. Saturn is the fall of man and the ascent of man. Saturn's labyrinth of shadows guides us to spiritual ruin and ignorance and the death of all truth. And then it guides us back up through trials and tests to demonstrate our atonement. And upon passing its tests, we return to the same state we were at on the opposite side of the coin when we lost it. That is to say, if at one moment in the Treta Yuga as a descending soul we degraded our Gnosis of truth in an act of ignorant unconsciousness via sin, it's when we return to the Treta Yuga again as ascending souls at that same point in the Yuga that an act of atonement will return the Gnosis that was lost through our sinful act. To be sinful, that is to practice the perverse extremes of worldliness, is to cultivate darkness within, which blots out the light. Demons obfuscate and twist the truth. And the Christians are right when they say that sin is a portal in for demons. Every act you do and intention you have creates yourself and has far-reaching consequences. That's karma. Not just energetic cause and effect, but the projected state of who you are and what you've done to your own consciousness. The demonic quality which perverts truth into ignorance is largely held together by a kind of arrogance. Obvious truths are mocked with a chuckle and a smirk. Even things which shouldn't be a debate, like astrology, are contested. Astrology doesn't even rely upon Gnosis. Every part of astrology is extremely testable. Horary astrology allows me to answer a question you just came up with, and we can determine if the answer I gave ended up being true. If you give two people two different astrological elections using electional astrology to begin a certain venture, and one election is abysmally terrible and the other is extremely auspicious and harmonious, that will be reflected in the success of those people. These are things that have been tested for thousands of years to separate fact from fiction. Astrology is verifiably true in a repeatable way, and in the age of ignorance, with a chuckle and a smirk, people wave it off, having never explored any part of it, and only knowing about newspaper star sign horoscopes. This is especially important because astrology isn't a fun little hobby or a fortune-telling trick. It's literally the hands of God that move everything we experience on Earth. Everything that happens can be traced directly back to the configuration of the heavens of that moment. To arrogantly wave off astrology as false is to wave off some of the most immediate knowledge of God. Even someone without Gnosis can see God work through his hands that are the planets. It's verifiable, just like they like. And still, the spirit of ignorance is so strong that they laugh and wave it off. To hear someone with Gnosis talk isn't like listening to a child talk out the imaginary scenes they've come up with. Instead, it's words being spoken that strike at some forgotten aspect of the mind. The kind of hand-on-head sense of unbalance that someone with amnesia has as they're bordering on the cusp of remembering bits and pieces of what they've forgotten. To hear someone with true Gnosis speak is like hearing an echo of forgotten knowledge that somehow pervaded the distance of separation between millions of lifetimes. It seems ancient, like it's somehow connected to something we used to know many lives ago, and yet it contrasts and creates friction against the current systems of thought that your modern world has adopted in you. I lust for these downloads from divinity. They are a form of remembrance that comes to me only through passing through the darkness of my deeds. With every act of alchemy and atonement, I'm granted greater remembrance of the supreme wisdom and truth of God and its logos spermaticos. As the lights of Gnosis come back on in my mind, casting away all falsehood and forgetfulness.